Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for joining me. You clicked on this video because you saw the title, We've Started a Podcast. Well, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. I've had a hard time figuring out exactly how to introduce this show, the podcast that we've been working on, and I figured I'd just go over why we started it, what exactly it is, and who we are as well. And then finally, why you should listen. So, if you're watching, if you're intrigued, search The Weekly Quack or the Quackalope Podcast in any of your podcast locations or over on Google, or follow the link in literally the top of this video description to check out what we're doing. We release episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, and we've been up and running for about a month now publicly, and about 2 to 3 months now privately in our Patreon community, test running and figuring out the format and the formula that we wanted to bring here into the public. And now it's time to share and be excited about it. So, podcast. What is a podcast? A podcast is an audio platform, an audio device, a listening thing. We have a conversation. On Tuesdays, we release a episode of a show called Played It Once with Jan Bigas and me, my co-host. And the whole concept of that show is a deep dive into a single game that we've had a single experience with. Now, we break those rules pretty consistently, but the whole idea, the whole core concept of this is first impressions matter, and so we made a podcast about ours. If you can't tell, that's a tagline, and I absolutely adore it. It might be the thing I'm the most proud of in the past year of writing things, sentences. Well, and it might be that sentence I just used is the least proud thing that nope, it's going to be the one here that isn't even gonna. Either way. On Thursdays, we release a show called The Weekly Quack with Board Game Co. Now, Board Game Co. and I have been mixing it up a little bit. There's no secret there. I mean, we have an active giveaway and squabble going on right now. There's a little bit of back and forth. There is a flood of ducks over on his channel right now saying Quack, and I appreciate every second of it. It has literally been the funniest thing that's happened to both of us in a very long time. And those things aren't going to end. In fact, I have plans coming down the line, so please stay tuned because I'm going to need your help with them, just so you know. But before all this squabbling started, before all the bickering started, we started a podcast together. And so I assume, despite everything, despite whatever he does in retaliation, I figure we'll continue it. In The Weekly Quack, we do more or less 3 things. We have a segment called Shelf or Sell, where we talk about games that are either being added to our collection, leaving our collection, being stubbornly held onto by mostly me, and we all react to that sort of discussion. Why you're getting rid of something, what other people might be bringing into their library. Have you played it before? Are you intrigued by it? Are you never going to touch it again? Things like that. We explore that conversation as honestly and, thoroughly as we can. We have a segment called, if I could remember, the Medley Minute, which is a fantastic little segment where we talk about upcoming news, things that you should be aware of, things that we're excited about, a relaxing respite from the arguments and bickering in the other parts of the show. And then finally, the third segment there is going to be on the radar, where we talk about Kickstarters that have just launched or games that have just kind of caught our attention, things that are actionable that you can execute on. And so that's the format of the show. We've had a lot of fun building it and designing it and doing it. And one of the most interesting things is who we are. It's the next thing I have written there. That's why I held up the post-it. You don't need to know that. So the show right now is built around Jan Bigas, my co-host, myself, and Alexander Radcliffe III from Board Game Co. And that dynamic, for me, I think is really fascinating or interesting. So I'll give you my perception of both of the other hosts here so that you understand what you're walking into. I'm just me, right? I'm try to keep us on track and put in little quips and do my very best to keep the show structured and formatted and also with a correct amount of flavor text and foul moments. If you're curious what that is, I'm excited for you to find out. Jan, my co-host, is in almost everything nearly the opposite of me. Doesn't really care about theme or flavor text that much. Game taste is similar on some things, but for vastly different reasons, and primarily cares about mechanics and things that do something new over almost anything else. He is respectful and kind and an incredible partner, and I'm grateful to have him as part of my team. But when it comes to conversations about what he's getting rid of or what he's adding to, dear God, what he's adding to his collection, I unequivocally oftentimes do not agree with the statements that he's making. And so that contrast, that dichotomy between us is actually, for me, really interesting and fun to engage in. You're getting a conversation from people who have two vastly different collections with vastly different reasons why, or ways that we approach games. I'm theme and story and lore, and I'm more of a collector than a gamer in a lot of ways, because I have so many big box games that have made promises to me that I almost never execute on. I also barely get rid of things. Titles stay piled up around until I have an opportunity to just give them away, because I don't like the overhead of selling or trading things. Jan keeps a refined collection, narrows things down into precise order, knows exactly what space he has left on his shelf and what games need to fill that space or need to be removed from that space if he has a new title coming in. And then we add Alex from Board Game Co. into the mix. And the conversation takes another facet. Instead of mechanics, instead of theme, we have value. We have, what does this add, right? And that's such a cool conversation, because Alex and I match up in a variety of ways on a lot of things. Like Dead Reckoning, for instance. We loved playing that game together. Or Fort, we were both interested in that experience. But he also matches up with Jan in some odd ways as well. The things that they mechanically find intriguing that just completely diverge from the thematic elements that I personally need. And so, as a third voice in this conversation, he brings something new. He brings a little bit of more of a controversial or stable stance around opinions. Butts heads with me a little bit more than Jan typically does, but also strikes agreements with both of us in really interesting and fascinating ways. And so, that's who we are. Or at least my perception of us. You determine for yourself. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Like always, in true Quackalope fashion, and I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, this is an overly produced podcast. So audio quality, sound effects, everything like that. We're constantly working and improving, but I can guarantee you this will be an enjoyable listening experience above anything else. And then finally, why you should listen. First off, podcasts are easy and consumable. You can listen to them while you drive to work, wake up, go on a jog, do your other activities. You don't have to sit and watch the screen. It's how I consume a ton of media, even if that media is on YouTube. Second off, we would really appreciate your ears and support, both to craft and design, the program that we're making, but also for us, having you there as part of the community. Coming from this position and engaging with another platform with us, I mean, it's really cool. We're really, really excited. Jan is so excited about this thing. He really is taking the lead in terms of development and production on it, and he's doing an incredible job. And so just as a fan of our own podcast, I literally listen to it at midnight when it goes live on Thursday. I believe I'm one of the first people to listen to it, and I'm in it. Because I'm excited to see what Jan's done, how he's refined and edited and put everything together. But finally, why you should listen. I think we're going to add a valuable conversation to the board game space. Over there, we bring our two channels together, Board Game Co. and Quackalope. I'm talking high quality and entertaining and flavor text and weird little quips and foul moments galore, but also analytics and criticism and stuff that narrows down and digs into why each of us relate to games in different ways. A divergence of opinion coming together to have a conversation around board games. I think it is fun, I think it is entertaining, and most of all, I think it's informative. And I think you'll enjoy and benefit from listening to it. So, the last thing I have on here is to push to the audio. If you made it to this point, I think you're already intrigued. You're probably going to go check it out. But I have a few clips right here that I wanted to share with you to give you just an introduction or a taste of what's to come. And right before we cut to those, I do have to say, this podcast is entirely made possible by our Patreon supporters. Our goal at 150 backers over on Patreon was to start working on and developing this podcast. And so the support we've been given over the last few months has first off been mind-blowing. And we are so grateful for it. But it's also enabled us to do things like this show. So if you enjoy what we're producing, first off, there's about 10 other episodes behind the paywall on Patreon where we were learning and getting our feet wet and figuring out exactly how to swim in this pond. But second off, if you want to help make this possible, support the work we're doing, swing over to Patreon for either or both Quackalope and Board Game Co. Both of us would really appreciate that support, appreciate having your voice as part of this conversation, and both of us are also working on providing additional extra and bonus episodes behind kind of those communities. So if you enjoy what we have going on, please just keep that in the back of your mind. All it takes is $1 or $5 or $20, however much you're able to give, because together as a group, we make things like this possible. So whatever you can do, genuinely and solely make shows like this happen. I feel like I was a PBS advertiser there. If you'd like to see the Teletubbies come back next year, support Quackalope. All right, let's go to the audio, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the Quackalope Podcast. If you're listening to this, it's because you're trying to figure out what the heck this is. So are we. So congratulations, we're all in this together.
This is the very first episode of the Weekly Quack. I'm one of your hosts, Jam Begas, and with me is Sender Radcliffe and Mr. Jesse Anderson. How are you doing today, guys?
I am doing phenomenal, and as a quick correction, because it wouldn't be a good show if I didn't start correcting you right off the bat. But
oh, wow, Jan, I love the fact that you set up the table with an array of ducks. The one thing I would have to specify is the live duck in the middle of it, a little unnecessary. I appreciate the commitment. This is the first episode, but they're fairly slovenly.
So I'm kind of curious, honestly. I'm unsure what's going to happen today. It's a little bit of a mystery for me.
He's keeping it. He's letting us know that he loves this as a staple in his collection, as any owner of Seven Wonders Duel should.
So today I am bringing in, and actually I'm kind of surprised that you mentioned it already, Alex, Project Elite by Simon.
Ooh, good choice.
Well,
Are you
Sender's already excited to play a 3-player run of this game.
But I will say, I'm not even going to wait for your pitch. You are clearly getting rid of it because that's all you have done so far. You don't even understand what it means to love a game anymore. You have lost all
That's true.
taste.
So in 3, 2, 1, this is the entire collection of Project Elite. I am keeping this forever.
Cow.
I love this game.
You have everything?
I chose this week to prematurely, immediately call you out for the way you've been disillusioned in gaming, and you must have been so happy the entire time.
Oh, yes. I finally was able to keep the mystery alive.
All right.
And I'm opening up our thing here.
Yeah, I what are we talking about again?
Marvel Champions.
Oh, Marvel Champions.
Welcome to Plated
No. You forgot that we're starting these things with like cold opens, Jan.
Who
Gonna
said
cut you
so?
off the pass because I like them. I like cold opens.
Welcome to Plated Once,
No.
a
Jan,
podcast
Jan,
about games we've only played once.
We start
The
with
reality
cold
is
opens,
that
Jan.
most board
That is
games
not how
only make
this
it to the
works.
table
No,
one
I'm gonna
time,
talk
and
over the
first
entire
impressions
thing.
matter.
Don't you dare
So we
finish
made a
this thing.
podcast
Don't
about
you get
ours.
to the end of it. I
I'm your
swear to
host,
God.
Jan
Oh, I
Bigas,
forgot.
and with
God.
me is
Not-
Jesse Anderson.
I really like ducks, and I thought maybe I could make board games more pretty than the average person.
And how are we going to make them pretty on a podcast, Jesse?
I have no idea.
How's that going to work?
I'll describe all of the flavor text I can,
Oh, God.
throw the podcast slightly off the rails, and hopefully our audio quality will be up to snuff. That is, if you remember to keep your mic on.
I will never forget.